28. It seemed there was a woman. She was sitting near a lamp, which was where she belonged, in a good light. Another light shone hard on my face, so I closed my eyes again and tried to look at her through the lashes. She was so platinum that her hair shone like a silver fruit ball. She wore a green knitted dress with a broad white collar turned over it. There was a sharp-angled glossy bag at her feet. She was smoking, and a glass of amber fluid was tall and pale at her elbow. I moved my head a little, carefully. It hurt, but not more than I expected. I was trussed like a turkey ready for the oven. Handcuffs held my wrists behind me, and a rope went from them to my ankles and then over the end of the brown davenport on which I was sprawled. The rope dropped out of sight over the davenport. I'd moved enough to make sure it was tied down. I stopped these furtive movements and opened my eyes again and said, "Hello." The woman withdrew her gaze from some distant mountain peak. Her small, firm chin turned slowly. Her eyes were the blue of mountain lakes. Overhead, the rain still pounded with the remote sound as if it was somebody else's rain. "How do you feel?" It was a smooth, silvery voice that matched her hair. It had a tiny tinkle in it, like bells in a dollhouse. I thought that was silly as soon as I thought of it. "Great," I said. "Somebody built a filing station on my jaw. What did you expect? Mr. Marlowe, Orchards?" "Just a plain pine box," I said. "Don't bother with the bronze or silver handles. And don't scatter my ashes over the blue Pacific. I like the worms better. Did you know that worms are of both sexes and any worm can love any other worm?" "You're a little lightheaded," she said with a grave stare. "Would you mind moving this light?" She got up and went behind the davenport. The light went off. The dimness was a benison. "I don't think you're so dangerous," she said. She was tall rather than short, but no beanpole. She was slim, but not a dried crust. She went back to her chair. "So you know my name. You slept well? They had plenty of time to go through your pockets. They did everything but embalm you. So you're a detective. Is that all they have on me?" She was silent. Smoke floated dimly from the cigarette. She moved it in the air. Her hand was small and had shape. Not the usual bony garden tool you see on women today's. "What time is it?" I asked. She looked sideways at her wrist, beyond the spiral of smoke, at the edge of the grave luster of the lamplight. 10:17. "You have a date?" "I wouldn't be surprised." "Is this the house next to Art Hook's garage?" "Yes." "What are the boys doing, digging a grave?" "They had to go somewhere." "You mean they left you here alone?" Her head turned slowly again. She smiled. "You don't look dangerous. I thought they were keeping you as a prisoner." It didn't seem to startle her. It even slightly amused her. "What made you think that?" "I know who you are." Her very blue eyes flashed so sharply that I could almost see the sweep of their glance, like the sweep of a sword. Her mouth tightened, but her voice didn't change. "Then I'm afraid you're in a bad spot. And I hate killing. And you, Eddie Mars's wife. Shame on you." She didn't like that. She glared at me. I grinned. "Unless you can unlock these bracelets, which I advise you not to, you might spare me a little of that drink you're neglecting." She brought the glass over. Bubbles rose in it like flash hopes. She bent over me. Her breath was as delicate as the eyes of a fawn. I gulped from the glass. She took it away from my mouth and watched some of the liquid run down my neck. She bent over me again. Blood began to move around in me, like a prospective tenant looking over a house. "Your face looks like a collision mat," she said. "Make the most of it. It won't last you long even this good." She swung her head sharply and listened. For an instant her face was pale. The sounds were only the rain drifting against the walls. She went back across the room and stood with her side to me, bent forward a little, looking down at the floor. "Why did you come here and stick your neck out?" she asked quietly. "Eddie wasn't doing you any harm. You knew perfectly well that if I hadn't hid out here, the police would have been certain Eddie murdered Rusty Reagan. He did, I said. She didn't move, didn't change position an inch. Her breath made a harsh, quick sound. I looked around the room. The doors both in the same wall, one half open. A carpet of red and tan squares, blue curtains at the windows. A wallpaper with a bright green pine tree on it. The furniture looked as if it had come from one of those places that advertise on bus benches. Gay but full of resistance. She said softly, Eddie didn't do anything to him. I haven't seen Rusty in months. Eddie is not that sort of man. You left his bed and board. You were living alone. People at the place where you lived identified Reagan's photo. That's a lie, she said coldly. I tried to remember whether Captain Gregory had said that or not. My head was too fuzzy. I couldn't be sure. And it's none of your business, she added. The whole thing is my business. I'm hired to find out. Eddie's not that sort of man. Oh, you like racketeers. As long as people will gamble, there will be places for them to gamble. That's just perspective thinking. Once outside the law, you're all the way outside. You think he's just a gambler. I think he's a pornographer, a blackmailer, a hot car broker, a killer by remote control, and a subordinate of crooked cops. He's whatever looks good to him. Whatever has a cabbage pinned to it. Don't try to sell me on any high-sold racketeers. They don't come in that pattern. He's not a killer. Her nostrils flared. Not personally. Yes, Canino. Canino killed a man tonight, a harmless little guy who was trying to help somebody out. I almost saw him killed. She laughed wearily. All right, I growled. Don't believe it. If Eddie is such a nice guy, I like to get to talk to him without Canino around. You know what Canino will do? Beat my teeth out and then kick me in the stomach for mumbling. She put her head back and stood there thoughtful and withdrawn, thinking something out. I thought platinum hair was out of style. I bored on, just to keep sound alive in the room, just to keep from listening. It's a wig, silly. While mine grows out. She reached up and yanked it off. Her own hair was clipped short all over, like a boy's. She put the wig back on. Who did that to you? She looked surprised. I had it done. Why? Yes, why? Why? To show Eddie I was willing to do what he wanted me to do. Hide out. That he didn't need to have me guarded. I wouldn't let him down. I love him. Good grief. I groaned. And you have me right here in the room with you. She turned her hand over and stared at it. Then abruptly she walked out of the room. She came back with a kitchen knife. She bent and sawed at my rope. Canino has the key to the handcuffs, she breathed. I can't do anything about those. She stepped back, breathed rapidly. She had cut the rope at every knot. You're a kick, she said. Kidding with every breath, the spot you're in. I thought Eddie wasn't a killer. She turned away quickly and went back to her chair by the lamp and sat down and put her face in her hands. I swung my feet to the floor and stood up. I tottered around, stiff-legged. The nerve on the left side of my face was jumping in all its branches. I took a step. I could still walk. I could run if I had to. I guess you mean me to go, I said. She nodded without lifting her head. You'd better go with me if you want to keep on living. Don't waste your time. He'll be back any minute. Light a cigarette for me. I stood beside her, touching her knees. She came to her feet with a sudden lurch. Our eyes were only inches apart. Hello, Silverwig, I said softly. She stepped back and around the chair and swept a package of cigarettes up off the table. She jabbed one loose and pushed it roughly into my mouth. Her hand was shaking. She snapped a small green leather lighter and held it to the cigarettes. I drew in the smoke, staring into her lake blue eyes. While she was still close to me, I said, A little bird named Harry Jones led me to you. A little bird that used to hop in and out of cocktail bars picking up horse bets for crumbs, picking up information too. This little bird picked up an idea about Canino. One way and another, he and his friends found out where you were. He came to me to sell the information because he knew. How he knew is a long story. That I was working for General Sternwood. I got his information, but Canino got the little bird. He's a dead little bird now, with his feathers ruffled and his neck limp and a pearl of blood on his beak. Canino killed him. But Eddie Mars wouldn't do that, would he, Silverwig? He never kill anybody. He just hires it done.
Get out, she said harshly. Get out of here quick.
Her hand clutched in midair on the green lighter. The fingers strained, and the knuckles were as white as snow. But Canino doesn't know I know that, I said, about the little bird. All he knows is I'm nosing around. Then she laughed. It was almost a racking laugh. It shook her as the wind shakes a tree. I thought there was puzzlement in it. Not exactly surprise, but as if a new idea had been added to something already known, and it didn't fit. Then I thought that was too much to get out of a laugh. It's very funny, she said breathlessly. Very funny, because you see, I still love him. Women, she began to laugh again. I listened hard, my head throbbing. Just a ring still. Let's go, I said. Fast. She took 2 steps back and her face said hard. Get out, you. Get out. You can walk to Relito. You can make it. And you could keep your mouth shut for an hour or 2 at least. You owe me that much. Let's go, I said. Got a gun, Silverwig? You know I'm not going. You know that. Please, please, get out of here quickly. I stepped up close to her, almost pressing against her. You're going to stay here after turning me loose? Wait for that killer to come back so you could say so sorry? A man who kills like swatting a fly. Not much. You're going with me, Silverwig. No, suppose, I said thinly, your handsome husband did kill Reagan. Or suppose Canino did without Eddie's knowing it. Just suppose. How long will you last after turning me loose? I'm not afraid of Canino. I'm still his boss's wife. Eddie's a handful of mush, I snarled. Canino will take him with a teaspoon. He'll take him the way the cat took the canary. A handful of mush. The only time a girl like you goes for a wrong G when he's a handful of mush. Get out. She almost spit at me. Okay. I turned away from her and moved out through the half-open door and into a dark hallway. Then she rushed after me and pushed past to the front door and opened it. She peered out into the wet blankness and listened. She motioned me forward. Goodbye, she said under her breath. Good luck with everything but one thing. Eddie didn't kill Rusty Reagan. You'll find him alive and well somewhere when he wants to be found. I leaned against her, pressed her against the wall with my body. I pushed my mouth against her face. I talked to her that way. There's no hurry. All this was arranged in advance, rehearsed to the last detail, timed to the split second. Just like a radio program, no hurry at all. Kiss me, Silverwig. Her face under her mouth was like ice. She put her hands up and took hold of my head and kissed me hard on the lips. Her lips were like ice too. I went out through the doors and it closed behind me without sound, and the rain blew under the porch, not as cold as her lips.